Good evening, everybody. Really want to thank y'all so much for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us tonight. I know that getting here at 6 o'clock on a Wednesday is tough, and I really appreciate that. So we're here tonight to have a great community discussion on climate change, but really about how it is already impacting both our daily lives and our constant struggle for social justice. And for those of you who don't know me and didn't hear that great introduction, my name's Harrison Wallace. I am the Virginia director here at the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. And over the course of this evening, we're going to hear a bunch of personal stories, including mine, and even have the opportunity to work on our own. And we're going to focus on this skill of storytelling because there really is nothing like a powerful personal story that can get people to take action on the biggest issues of our time. So before I get into why you should care about climate change, I want to get behind a solution that will get Virginia on track towards real progress. I wanted to spend a minute telling you about how I got here. I'm not a scientist or a lifelong environmentalist, just a cute baby, but instead I'm the son of a single mom who always taught me to respect people and who always watched the news. It was tradition at our house that the dinner time programming would consist of NBC World News, and that the general soundtrack to our lazy Saturdays was a medley of talking heads on CNN. And I can't say that I was always paying attention, but the one moment that always stuck with me during that disaster coverage that was happening all the time in the early 2000s was the coverage of Hurricane Katrina. For the first time, I saw a group of people who I saw as peers, who looked like me, who were fellow citizens, being called refugees and looters in their own land, in their own backyards. And no one was prepared for that storm. No one had ever seen anything like that storm. And for weeks, I watched the situation unfold, and everything around the Gulf Coast just seemed to get worse, especially for our vulnerable communities. But one moment that continues to be seared into my brain from that time was a photo of two men using wooden planks to paddle a raft across high water at the end of a bridge. There's no help in sight, and there's nothing but destruction behind them. And I decided then and there, at that young age, that I wanted to spend as much of my time as possible helping vulnerable communities like those in New Orleans, so that my future kids wouldn't have the same situation unfold on their TV screens, or God forbid it, in their own backyards. Now, the news taught me that politics is the way to go if I wanted to help create change and create the massive shift that will change things to the better. So I started my journey working on political campaigns that seemed to appeal to my ideals. But after a few years of that, as many of you know, I got tired of looking to a candidate to be the hero that will make all my hopes and dreams come true. And instead, I wanted to work in the community to actually hold these decision makers accountable once they get into office. So that's how I got to CCAN. In 2014, I joined the team as a Hampton Roads organizer, really coming full circle to what inspired me to work on climate change, working in the community that's second to New Orleans is most vulnerable to sea level rise. And I came to CCAN and stayed here because this organization is true to its mission to build a diverse movement powerful enough to put our region of DC, Maryland, and Virginia on the path to climate stability. Because if we can't do it in our own backyards, how in the world are we going to change the world? So we at CCAN are fighting for an equitable energy future where dirty fuels are phased out and Virginia is powered by 100% clean energy, where communities that are now sacrificed by the fossil fuel industry have won the freedom to decide where their energy comes from and how it's used, and where vulnerable communities are protected from the worst impacts of climate change. Now, you've heard my story, you've heard CCAN's story, but we're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about climate change. Not just because of storms like Hurricane Katrina, but because climate change impacts every single one of us in this room right now. And what does that really mean? Well, it means that thousands of people in California had to evacuate to escape the wildfires. Those are victims of climate change. It means the folks in North Carolina who were forced from their homes or had their water poisoned by toxic runoff due to Hurricane Florence. Those are victims of climate change. But I said us, the people in this room. So I'm going to take a poll real quick. Who here knows someone who's been impacted by the 9 freak tornadoes that came out of Hurricane Florence? Who here knows someone whose asthma or allergies have gotten worse over the last decade? And who here knows someone who has dealt with historic flooding? See, it's not just on the coast. These problems are getting worse all over Virginia. And when it comes to the climate crisis in Virginia, it's like we're a car that's speeding towards a cliff. Burning fossil fuels like coal and frack gas are heating up the atmosphere and ruining our planet, making storms worse, summers hotter, extending the droughts that lead to dangerous fires like the tragedy in Paradise, California. But if we don't begin a seismic shift away from those dirty fuels and towards clean energy quickly, and like cut it in half in 12 years type of quickly, then things will only get worse. So we have the moral responsibility to do something right now. Now, luckily, as many of you know, there are clean and renewable ways to get our energy, and they're getting pretty cheap. Within the next few years, Virginia's solar energy capacity could increase tenfold, and we could see the first offshore wind turbine coming to Hampton Roads. Electric cars are becoming more affordable and easier to charge on the road every day. And even big companies like Facebook and Amazon are demanding that the new projects they're building in Virginia come with 100% clean energy. And projects like this aren't happening just because they're the right thing to do. Let's face it, they're happening because they're just as cost effective as coal and natural gas. So if we know that this is a problem, and we know there are real solutions, and we know we're running out of time, then why in the world aren't we doing anything bold and ambitious in Virginia? And the answer to this complicated problem can be summed up in 2 words: Dominion Energy. The electric monopoly has been using their image and money to write the very rules that we have to play by in our regulated state. And those rules are written so that Dominion makes more money the more that they build. And that's why they're racing to build more pipelines and more frack gas infrastructure. So this event is called From Pipelines to Progress because we need to move in a new direction and start writing the rules. And Dominion's motive is not to save the planet or to cut down on pollution. It's to make more money for their executives or their shareholders. And the biggest rate of return comes from expensive projects like pipelines and power plants. But with every new mile of pipeline or every new power plant, monopolies like Dominion are not only contributing to that next 1,000-year storm or wildfire, but also to that asthma attack or that missed day of school in your community. So here's a picture of Dominion executive Tom Farrell and former Governor Terry McAuliffe. As you can see, they're good pals. This is when Dominion first proposed its Atlantic Coast Pipeline, or ACP, for frack gas. You've probably heard of the ACP. It's a $7 billion boondoggle that will spur more fracking and more dirty energy usage. And around the same time, another polluter named EQT proposed a potentially disastrous 300-mile pipeline project called the Mountain Valley Pipeline. Early construction of this project has wreaked havoc on landowners in Southwest Virginia, leading some of them to risk arrest to, get this, protect their own property from destruction. Even after serious backlash to the MVP, the company is now proposing an extension to the project called the MVP Southgate, which would add another 70 miles to destruction. And in climate terms, the ACP and the MVP are like adding 45 new coal plants to our region. That's right, 45 new dirty, asthma-inducing coal plants. And Dominion pressured Virginia lawmakers and regulators into believing that we need them. Now, we all know energy from frack gas is horrible for our planet and dangerous for regular folks everywhere, from the point of extraction to the final destination where it's burned. But there's a misconception with frack gas. It's considered a bridge fuel to cleaner sources of energy, when in fact it's really just a bridge to guaranteed profit for energy monopolies like Dominion. Dominion fooled Virginians by saying, hey, there's no way we will meet future demand without frack gas. But if y'all look at that blue line right there, that is the actual regional market showing that demand is barely going up. And that gray line is Dominion, who has inflated future demand by the equivalent of 2 new coal plants. So their plan is to sell the gas from Dominion to Dominion. No ratepayers are in that equation. And they're going to make a heck of a lot of profit doing it. They promised themselves 15% rate of return for their shareholders. And surprise, we're footing the bill. Meanwhile, Dominion itself has not produced any research that shows that the pipeline is a needed source of energy for the people who are actually paying for it. They were even bold enough, as you can see here, to tell state regulators to their faces that they didn't even do the research to see. So again, we have another example of what happens when Dominion writes the rules. It leads us closer to that climate cliff. So how else does Dominion write the rules? It has decided to build a huge natural gas compressor station for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in the worst place possible, 1 football field's length away from people's homes. And that's in Union Hill in Buckingham County, a neighborhood founded by the descendants of slaves. This project will create loud noise likened to a jet engine 24 hours a day, along with periodic releases of toxic fumes. And the permit for this station has been one of the most contentious regulatory battles since the Wise County coal plant, the second to last coal plant ever built in our country, and it was under construction 10 years ago. So this isn't all bad. Things are changing. Dominion sees the writing on the wall. They've seen the studies from the climate scientists. They've seen the growing number of elected leaders who recognize that we must move away from fossil fuels and move away from their campaign donations. And they've seen the opposition to the Buckingham compressor station. And no matter how much money, and they've thrown a lot of money at it, or political capital they throw at the situation, people across Virginia continue to band together and resist this project. And when it comes to the Atlantic Coast Pipeline as a whole, well, they've seen so much opposition that the price has ballooned over initial estimates by $1 billion. Another indicator that the fight is working is that the stock price for EQT, remember that company behind the Mountain Valley Pipeline? Well, their stock has been plummeting all year. This may make you think that they would start moving towards the new, clean, cheap energy sources, but instead they're going all out to build as much infrastructure for these dirty pipelines as they can before the business and the incentives that make it so admirable dries up. Now, this is our watershed moment. This is it. We can grab the wheel from Dominion and put them in the back seat for good. We can start writing the rules that benefit our livelihoods and our pockets instead of Dominion's shareholders, because we need to proactively fix our energy policies, and we can do it. You probably remember me saying that CCAN's vision for getting Virginia to 100% clean energy. Well, this won't happen right away, and we can take a step in the right direction beginning next month. It begins with Virginia joining the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative, and we call it Reggie. This plan will force polluters like Dominion to reduce their pollution every year and begin investing in solutions that will help us, the people, solve the coming climate crisis and help vulnerable communities who are feeling the effects of climate change right now. Now, sticking with my theme of storytelling, I'd like to show you a video that shows the story of Reggie and what it could do for the Commonwealth.
The world's top scientists say the Earth's climate is like a car speeding out of control, right toward a cliff. If we want to reverse the momentum of climate change, we don't have much time. But companies like Dominion Energy want to push the gas pedal even harder. Dominion Energy is the biggest polluter in Virginia. Instead of decreasing fossil fuel use, Dominion's public business plan is to build more gas plants and massive new pipelines for fracked gas. Dominion sees what's down the road for Virginia. More flooding, more extreme storms, heat waves, and higher energy bills. But they're still not slowing down. Thankfully, there's a program that can stop Dominion Energy from increasing their emissions and help Virginia slow down climate change before it's too late. Reggie, the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. This program would reduce power plant pollution in Virginia while investing in climate solutions. How? Reggie will put a limit on Virginia's annual power plant carbon emissions and make polluters pay for each ton of carbon they emit. The cap allows less and less pollution each year, moving us toward clean, sustainable power. Meanwhile, making polluters pay for their harmful emissions would create hundreds of millions in investment dollars, helping Virginia move toward wind and solar power and weatherize the homes of low-income families. Money from the Reggie program would also go to protect Virginia's coast from sea level rise. But don't celebrate yet. There's a problem. If we follow Virginia's current plan, we'll only partially join Reggie, meaning we'll have to trust electric utility monopoly Dominion Energy to invest the hundreds of millions of Reggie dollars on projects that would benefit all of us. More likely, Dominion will just keep the money. Look at your monthly Dominion bills. Look at your polluted rivers. Look at Dominion's plans to build fracked gas pipelines right through your land. Do you trust them to spend millions on projects that benefit you? We don't want the polluters to profit from Reggie. That's why we need to fully and formally join Reggie with the help of policymakers in Richmond. Formally joining Reggie would steer us toward a cleaner, greener future and make Dominion pay up. Sound too good to be true? 9 states on the East Coast have already joined Reggie. They've seen emissions fall as jobs increase, and most of them have lower energy bills than Virginia's. So take the wheel, Virginians. Let's put Dominion in the backseat, where it belongs.
So Reggie's not going to solve all of our problems, but it will be a clear signal to energy monopolies like Dominion that Virginia will no longer accept dirty fuels as our main power source, nor will we stand for environmental injustices that come along with both the Atlantic Coast Pipeline and the Mountain Valley Pipeline. If we band together to demand action on Reggie from our elected leaders, then once we win, we can turn towards a just and equitable path to 100% clean energy. That means cheaper and cleaner energy plus new family-sustaining jobs for you and your neighbors. And that means that our Commonwealth will be playing its part to make sure that we have a livable climate for the years to come.